You're watching Co-op for Two, and today we're taking a look at Horrified Dungeons and Dragons.
You're watching Co-op for Two. I'm Jesse. I'm here with Greg.
Thanks for having me on your channel.
All right, tell us what we're doing today.
So we're going to look at Horrified, this Dungeons and Dragons, but we're going to do it a little differently because this doesn't exist in a vacuum. I played 4 of the 5 games. You played now 3 of the 5 Horrified games. So we're kind of going to make a lot of comparisons to the other Horrified games, okay? Because you have a choice now, right? If you like the system of Horrified and you're going to continue playing through them, of course you're probably going to buy this and play it anyway, regardless of what we say. And if you are in the market to play Horrified, you've got a lot of choices. So maybe you pick this one. Of course we're going to concentrate on this game, but we're not going to, we're going to make a lot of those references. So
we'll compare it to the ones we've played.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a video and a playthrough of the original Horrified. If you want to learn how to play, you should watch that or watch many of the hundreds of other videos. But I do think it's important to just start out with a quick overview and look at what's the same. In all of the Horrifieds, you pick some monsters, and the combination of them can control the difficulty. You've got your players. Each person controls a character. And you've got tiles that randomly, as you play, come out of items. You go pick up the items, and you get a little stronger in terms of what items you have and what little perks you have as you go and fight the monsters. It's the monsters that are the star of all the Horrified games. Every monster works quite differently. It's like a little mini game, and you have to learn the strategy of beating them. And then while you're doing that, while you're fighting these monsters, there's a little bit of a pandemic thing where the threat goes up and will kill you, and the threat can go up for various reasons, but chiefly among them is when these little civilians or whatever they're called get killed, and you can bring them, you can escort them. Each one comes out and has a place to go. So you've got sort of the task of escorting these people while you're working to kill the monsters.
Okay, so let's take a look, as we like to do normally, is to look at the idea of how are the components and the art and the theme. Okay, so components, like all of the Horrified games, I think is quite well done. First of all, it's a pretty inexpensive game. It's $40 or $50, which is very low.
That's expensive.
40. I think it was $40. Actually.
I think it was, but that feels very expensive. I don't know when games got so expensive.
Normally games, a really good big production was $60, and now that number is in the rear view somewhere. Okay. I feel like, but you get some miniatures, which are good but not amazing. They're decent, and you get this lovely, the boards are always gorgeous, I think.
Yes, and this one, I feel like the art in this one is more evocative, more interesting than the art in all the others.
This is
an
area where
the style of these cards I love.
I do think that you are, this is more personally, you have a recency bias, I think. I think when you have a harder time remembering.
And you've played more of these than I have, one more
That's not
least.
To say that your opinion is not valid. I'm just saying I think that is something that, because I think if we put the other boards out, you'd remember how gorgeous they always are.
Yeah, they may be gorgeous, but I guess the combination of the art and the theme I like better than the classic monsters or the American monsters. Like that doesn't appeal to me as much as these supernatural creatures.
So I think, definitely a good production, and I think for the price point especially so, and I think that's kind of been a through line through all of the Horrified games. I think are usually, lovely productions, and especially when you consider the price for them. The theming, you mentioned you like the theming of this one particularly?
Yeah, I'd rather be in this sort of magical world than the world of Frankenstein and the Mummy. I like the original movies, but this world is more... It's not in the game, but it is in the background.
Yeah. I think that's a very good point, because I kind of tend to think that this game, I do love the theming of Dungeons and Dragons, but I don't feel like in this particular version of the game, I don't feel the strength of that story that much. The monsters do have some some thematic tie. I think the Mimic especially so has a great thematic thing going on. The dragon you do have is Horde, so I feel like that's got some good thematics. The Beholder, I think, is a little weaker of a tie, although I do like the fact that you're like eliminating his stalks. And the Displacer Beast does move around.
Can you show the monsters? We
Yeah.
do these videos occasionally, and sometimes
Yeah.
we do this stuff, and sometimes we don't. But I do think it's like it pays. You're going to get these 4 monsters: Mimic, Displacer Beast, Beholder, and the Dragon, which has 2 things.
He has a
And
board.
the so they're all different little mini games. But the Dragon is clearly the big long one, and the rules even say, like you mentioned this when we played this.
Yeah.
You're like, what the fuck is this? The most of the 3 of the 4 creatures are like trivial to beat, and the dragon is this big long procedure. And the rules say, if you want to play an easy game, take the other guys. If you want to play a hard game, you must take the dragon and then throw in one of the others.
So let's talk about that before we go back to. So I think in general, Horrified. I mean, the original Horrified game had 6 different monsters, and you were meant to play. Depending on I think the standard difficulty is to play 3 monsters.
That's right. It was number of monsters controlled difficulty.
So it's there. You got 3 monsters, and some of the monsters can be more or less difficult depending on the one. But there's 3, and the follow up to that again 6.
Is that right? 6.
And then I feel like they started doing just 4 monsters.
Yeah, they started.
Now that's a lot less variety, because if you have 6 monsters that you're mixing, up, you have a lot more variability. I mean, just mathematically, right?
Yeah.
Now, what's weird in this one, and I feel is one of the bigger knocks against this game, is that, you have 4 monsters, and what they say is if you want to play it's really bizarre, because they say if you've never played Horrified before, play the Beholder, and I think the Mimic, or the Beholder and one other, and then if you played a regular game, play the Red Dragon and one other. And so
and that's it.
That's it. That's the whole thing. And I'm like, wait, what? And so like, that means that you're going to play the Red Dragon every single time. And when we played it, like playing without the Red Dragon, you will just obliterate.
Yeah.
It's so easy. It's crazy. And so you have to play the Red Dragon every single time, which thematically is kind of cool, that it's like, well, that's, the dragons are the big part. I mean, it's right in the title, Dungeons and Dragons, right? So, but I mean, like, you have to play this dragon every time. I mean, so
it's not just
the variability of this game, and the theme, it's like half of what it is in the other ones, I feel like.
It's not just that. It's that I want to talk about our playthrough with the Red Dragon, because it was quite positive for me. But also, there's a big chunk of the mini game of the Red Dragon that feels like I already was bored of it and tired of it before we even started it. The idea of doing that every time you play.
Yeah. So let's back up real fast. I just want to cap off the theme. Can we do that?
Yeah.
So I feel like this deck is one of the areas where you're going to get the most theme in the Horrified, the originals for sure, which are tailored to the monsters. Now, we didn't play this together, but I did on my channel. I did the World of Monsters, and so just a little history to this game. The original was. I loved so much. I love the theme, and of course, that's right up my alley with them, because I felt like the civilians were super thematic because it followed the events of the films, and the cards really is where the monsters and things got highlighted, where they did special things, like the vampire would turn into a bat or whatever.
Mostly just story text, flavor text, but it was cool.
But it made sense thematically,
and
thematic and a mechanism wise.
Sure.
So the games, the 3 and 4 game. World of Monsters and the Greek Monsters, they went to a system where they were very generic and they were meant to be combined, which I hated. That's the worst thing that ever happened in any of the Horrified games, in my opinion.
When did they move that?
That was for World of Monsters. And
can you explain to people watching who might be familiar with regular Horrified?
Yeah, so
exactly what you're talking about?
So in the original games, you would get a card, and at the bottom of the card, it would give a symbol, and it would be like Frankenstein.
This specific monster goes.
They activate. So easy. You're like, okay, Frankenstein activates. We're not playing with Frankenstein. Skip that. It's Dracula. He goes, right? So you can very easily see less fiddly. World of Monsters developed this system, which this game has, which you look at this symbol and you got to look at all the monsters involved and find whoever has that symbol. Little more fiddly. But I mean, it's just another.
This is a weird thing for you to criticize, because it is a change. It clearly is a change that makes the system more flexible. They're like, okay, I don't have to, because when a card says a specific monster, if you're not playing that monster, it doesn't trigger. Yeah. It seems like a more flexible system, and you are much better at handling those kinds of things. So I'm not sure why this bothered you.
So in World of Monsters, like I like, first of all, World of Monsters and Greek Monsters, they both have that system, and I think the cards become more generic, and that's where a lot of the flavor
You
is.
lost some of the
Lot of the flavor.
I get
so now
it.
they've returned to that in this game, which I think is better. Although these cards themselves are thematic, but I feel like they missed a little bit. They're not quite as thematic as they could be in terms of, like when sometimes I would read the cards, you would read the cards and you would tell the title, and I would be like, well, which monster does that apply to? Because it really didn't feel like
it's
that
true.
thematic.
Well, it is an interesting thing because with the original, they could draw on the movies to have these cards that were telling elements of the story of the movie. Here, you don't have a foundational set of stories that you can be talked about.
There's novels associated and source books. But kind of the idea, it's an interesting thing because the idea of, like drawing from a film or movie franchise or book franchise, the IP, you're taking from those specific stories. Dungeons and Dragons is all about players making their own stories. And I think that is the problem, is that most people are like me. I played Dungeons and Dragons. I've read a lot of the books and things, but I don't have an attachment to these characters because they're kind of part of the world or whatever. So I didn't feel like that came through as well in this one specifically.
Well, it's a good point. I mean, you're going to talk about the characters in a second, but these aren't named people, right? They're just generic
Well, and they weren't
characters.
in the other ones either. I'm saying like in the other one you might have Will and Schick from.
I guess you have names for these people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The civilians.
Well, I don't know who these people are. You know who these people are?
Well, they do tell you who they are when you get they say what they do or whatever, their place in the world. But I just didn't feel like
it does tell you.
I feel like the deck of cards in this particular game was better than the last two because it eliminated that fiddliness. Because you're never gonna, to me, I'm never gonna open up two different I mean, it's such a light game. I'm never gonna open up two different boxes and mix the monsters and have two boxes hanging around rules. That's chaos to me. That really loses something. So I'm glad that they returned to form, having specific cards for this. They kept some of the fiddliness with the monsters, having these specific symbols. I don't like that aspect of it. Personally, it's a little too fiddly for me. I like it a little cleaner and neater. Just every bit of bandwidth helps in a game, especially one of this weight. So I feel like they went a little awry in the last two boxes. In this box, they came back a little bit, making it a little more easy, a little more thematic, but I don't think they quite captured what they had in the first two boxes, the American Monsters and Universe Monsters. Personally. Obviously.
I don't mind the fiddliness of those cards at all. What bothered me a little bit was the fiddliness of the board movement.
Okay, well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So this beautiful board, which
it is gorgeous.
Yeah.
And you got the classic problem of named places not knowing the name. So your first game or two, you're like, every time you put something out, you're not sure where it is. But it's done quite well. I mean, the text is very easy to read. It's all here. But there is this weird choice. Two weird choices.
Can I just, in terms of placement? So in most games, like, this is, as you say, this is the game we always reference in this is what?
Defenders of the Realm,
which is a nightmare. And I felt like when we recently did Pandemic, the Lord of the Rings Pandemic, I had mentioned the fact that like I know where the locations are, so it made it a lot easier. Sometimes you can color code areas. I mean, if it's the map of the Earth, you can know like Japan's here and the US is here, whatever. But it's a weird thing because when you take these out, you put it in the location. Okay, this says House of Wonder. So the first time you play, you're like, where's the House of Wonder? And every single round you're doing that. But you kind of start to remember where things are. I think the House of Wonder, here it is. It's up here. So you put it here. But here's the strange thing. Every place is numbered, and we'll get to why that is later. Okay?
Not every place is numbered.
Well, most places are numbered.
Half of them are numbered.
There's 20 numbered places. The teleportation circles aren't numbered. But why wouldn't they just put like...
I think that's a great question.
Why? I mean, it would be like, 12?
You'd have to number the other places, but why not number them all?
Or just the ones that you have put a number on. It seemed like a really missed opportunity.
I agree with you. And then there's another weird thing. Like, in a game like... Well, let me talk about two problems. The first problem is that we looked at this board, we set it up, we're like, what's going on here? Like, yes, you could see these are all connected, but then is this a connection? Like, there's a line, there's a word, there's a banner here. Are these supposed to be connected? And then we've got these teleportation things here. So, like, this is a particularly odd choice. But then in addition to the readability weirdness here, it's a weird thing about how you look at this and you're like, oh, there's this big spatial element, but then these teleporters all make these things equally distant from each other. That's a very weird choice. Although in fairness to the game, we did encounter times where we were debating like this is too far away. So I do want to give it credit for adding some spatial decisions where you're like, this is far away, that's going to cost time. But
Yeah,
this was particularly weird.
So once you know that these two connect and these two connect, yes, it is helpful to know that, and it's easy to remember that those are the two connections. However, it is tough to like internalize like how to move around the board because it's such a weird board. These are connected, these spots are all connected, but not to this top world. I do think thematically that kind of is cool though, because this is the world above. This is like the city.
That was a cool element.
Waterdeep, and this
cool
is the
element.
Dungeon, which is the idea of Dungeons and Dragons as you go into the dungeons. And there is another neat aspect. The dragon can never.
That was one of my favorite parts of the game.
My least favorite part when we played with you.
Huh?
Because you were
we'll talk about we'll talk about our actual game in a minute. But yes, those there are two elements there that I love spatial thinking in games. And one of them is there are places here that are off the beaten track that you have to go far away. And we did have discussions like it's too much time to get there. Yeah. And then this cool thing about it's not that visually they're separated, it's mechanically that dragon cannot go up here. So there were some fun elements with that.
Yeah, but the board, it's so weird because it's a mixed bag. It's interesting to have these connections.
This whole lower level felt like they were everything was one space away. This
really
entire level felt like there was no spatial decisions.
And this is a different board. Have you ever seen a board like this before, honestly? I mean, like, it's a little commendable in a way because I'm like, I've never seen that before. The fact that
we have. Like Clank has that above ground stuff and below stuff.
I mean, is the board readable though? Because like, I don't mean that it's not readable, but like, it's hard to understand. Like, hey, what's the best way to get somewhere? What's closer to something else? It's not intuitive because these are very well connected, but then everything's kind of bottlenecked in these two areas. It's very strange because if you're up here, it's hard to get around, and then when you get down here, it's easy to move around down here. But it's really strange. But I mean, that's kind of a cool difference, right? Like you don't want to have to play the same game over and over again. And this, I think the most distinct feature of this version of Horrified is this very strange board. Again, not having played Greek monsters yet. So that's the caveat. Okay, so let's talk about...
Can I say something while we're talking about like readability stuff? So mostly this game is a success in terms of instructions, readability, but there's something that seems to be common in all the Horrified games, which is so incredibly bizarre to me. They're clearly targeted as sort of a mass market, less experienced gamers. And you were saying how like every Horrified game has this, but I'll just point out in this game, as we talked about, like every time you play this game, you're supposed to play with the dragon. If you're playing inexperienced or whatever, you get to the rules of this dragon horde. And there's this thing about like, here's the dragon horde's portal to and you're like, okay, let me just figure out in the rules what that actually means. So how does that work? It's not in the rules. Why can they not?
Let me give a little background to this.
I don't get it.
You find the dragon's lair, like so you find the red dragon's horde. Okay, let's say it's here, and your character is in this space here, right? Now I set you up to explain that a little.
Yeah, the point is. This is sort of represents his hordes. You have to this connects this space on the board to this, but there's clearly a space where the dragon wants to sit. There's this little carved out thing that says Red Dragon's Horde entry portal. So it's like you're thinking, does this go here? But no, it has to be where he came from. Does the dragon go here? Does he get lured here? Does he go back? Does he travel around? And the instructions are like, it's like they were paid by the word. There's like one paragraph rules for this.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Why do they not explain it?
Like, I mean, just natural questions. Like, well, because there is a mechanism to lure the dragon in, and you have to do that. Okay, but
it says lure him to his home, his lair, which feels like it's to here.
But okay, I think it's saying you can lure him into here. But the point is that like, if you're in here and the dragon is here, will he go in here to attack you? It seems to make sense. It's not explained anywhere, so that there's a number of weird things about, and it never says like, hey, move a space into here.
Yeah, it's strange.
There's several versions. I think the first Horrified didn't have any issues like that. The second Horrified, there was a weird thing about the Bigfoot. Other than that, it was pretty clean.
That's
right. The third one in World of Monsters, there the Cthulhu board, when you fought him, there was equally a lot of vagaries or weird things. And then on my channel, I did a whole thing about it, and somebody commented and they were like, there's all this errata for the game. And he was like, well, you did this wrong and this wrong and this wrong because there's errata in the game. And I'm like, I'm not reading an errata for a game of this like
It's
depth.
just
It
so
seems
it's
crazy
not. It's
to like.
what's so insane is it's not like some weird edge case that most people won't encounter. It's like
Yeah,
every game you have to fight that dragon. It's like the first thing you're going to need to know. It's so weird.
Yeah, it is. It's very surprising. And I think, you mentioned this, and I mentioned this, and I think in our last Horrified review, or the time before maybe, because we've reviewed together 2 of them. This is like, Horrified always seems like, I think, very simple, kind of family weight game, not that complicated. But I did play Horrified with a couple of times with non gamers, and they were like, I can never, and I was very, like,
they couldn't follow
and
it.
they were like, I would never be able to play this without someone else here. So it's kind of an interesting, I think, kind of thing that I think it's just like Codenames. People are always like, Codenames is for everyone. I'm like, it seems like it should be, but there are some people, there's some wrinkles to some of these games that seem to be. But anyway, yeah, because this is like a Target kind of game that was originally, I think, a Target exclusive was Horrified, I believe.
Yeah, I think that.
And so now that I bought this at our local game store, and like I do all my games, and like this is I think it's a weird thing about these. But
why don't you talk about the characters?
Yeah, let's do this. Okay, so
first show them the different characters.
In these characters, what you do is they're the same in every regard, except you have this little chart. And when you want to use an ability, you roll a die and you see what happens.
Okay. And we should say the other Horrifieds have special abilities.
Yeah. So you're like,
this person gets 5 actions. This person can draw people.
Pull delivery or the item tokens from neighboring places, whatever. It's just,
they all have asymmetric powers.
Yes, and when we play these games, we love the idea of asymmetric powers because it gives the game more life. You could say, hey, I'm going to, be this character and you be this character, and the game's going to be completely different because we're not going to have the strengths we did last time, but we are going to have some different strengths, and it makes the game play differently. This one, take the wizard, for example. Roll a d20. Move any monster to that location except the red dragon. Move the red dragon to a layer. That's 2 to 8. 1 is no effect. 2 to 8 is that. 9 to 15, roll the die 20. Move a hero to that location. Okay. Move any hero to any location if you roll 16 to 19, which is great, but it's very unlikely that you roll 16, 17, 18, or 19. 20, you get to move to any location and you gain a perk card. So it's very, very good, but again, very unlikely. That's why. So it's kind of like if you were planning.
Half the time you whiff.
Yeah. So like if you were planning this, you'd say, oh, it'd be really great if I can move you. We only got a couple actions left and we got to win. If I can move you closer, I'm going to roll this die, and maybe I'm going to spend my whole turn doing this. I'm going to roll this die. Oh, okay, I moved the monster somewhere that I didn't want them to be, so now I screwed us up. We're dead.
Very chaotic.
I just rolled this, and I rolled the thing to move a person. Fantastic. Now I'll roll another die, and look, I moved you across the map to where we don't want you. This is a very big statement I'm going to make, but this is my least favorite player powers in any game I've ever played ever. You'd be foolish to ever use them. You can try, like if you have.
You used them in our last game. You spent your whole turn rolling that die 4 times.
There was no real benefit to go anywhere in the fighter. Like I rolled because I thought, well, you can prevent the monster card from being drawn at the end of the round. So that kind of like it gives you a free turn basically. So I had no great action. So I thought if I could roll that, but of course I didn't. I just rolled a bunch of other nonsense that didn't even come into play. It's so random and it's nonsense. It's like. And it's hurtful sometimes. There's one of the characters one game I played the bard, and it was like move the citizens towards you. I'm like, I don't want them to go towards me. I want them to go away from me.
It's a very weird design.
And it's again. Do you think you can think of a worse set of characters?
Probably not. But you know what? So we played several times, and I had a slightly different take after sleeping on it a little bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
It's clear that they've captured, we talked about some of the theme in this, right? They've captured some of the flavor of D&D by leaning into this dice rolling. And I think that comes across. And you could see a younger group enjoying that. Like having this person's dice rolling do these very weird things. Like they all are different. They all have slightly different a little bit. But if you got into the mood of Dungeons and Dragons being rolling dice and getting lucky with the good roll, I can see that at least being consistent with the flavor of the game. And there are a couple more cards that make you roll dice. And one more thing. So in addition to the character powers rolling dice, several of the monsters you have to roll dice to attack them, and some of the cards involve rolling dice. And there's one mitigating factor to that, which you have some control over, and that's the perk cards. A bunch of the perk cards let you modify the dice, and you can decide when to try to get perk cards. So I think that's a little bit in its favor. I agree with your general impression about this being a terrible way to make asymmetric powers, but I have a little bit more appreciation of them just saying this game is going to involve dice rolling.
Okay.
That's all.
Any other thoughts you want to kind of wrap up?
No, I do have a couple more thoughts. This could be my memory of the original Horrified. I'm not 100% sure. But I do want to talk about our experience playing the Red Dragon a little bit. But, not the Red, well, he is red. Okay, but anyway, in this game, it felt to me more strategic in one regard, which was sort of the timing of rescuing people and some of the overall timing decisions that I don't remember, and it could just be my memory, coming into play with the original Horrified. Like, I remember in the original Horrified there being these people all over the place and monsters eating them and killing them. And it felt like when we played this, there were much fewer of these on the board and much more manageable, interesting decision. Like, okay, do we have time to bring this guy here? And that will get us a perk. And when we played, the one credit I'm going to give to this game is when we played, we had a bunch of moments where we were like, do we have time for this? Is this what we should be doing with our time? And you were very good. You were looking at the deck. You're like, we have this many turns to do this. And that was interesting. Those were and do we have time to come over here? Should we have time to come over to pick up one tile? I mean, this is the strength of the Horrified system in general.
I think that's true.
But I do feel like, for some reason, this game, it felt a little more manageable. Like I could see those decisions in a way that I couldn't see them in the previous Horrified games, and I appreciated that.
So I do want to mention there was one thing I actually do really love it thematically. And when we were I think the first game we played of this, we got this card very early, and I thought to myself, I'm going to hate this game.
Oh, yeah.
And it's
this is a bad card.
So, and I remember there is a card like this in the World of Monsters as well that can, like, if you get it in the right time, it just basically ends your whole game.
This should not be in the deck. This card should not be in the deck.
Gate. What you do is, when you pull that card, everybody rolls a die, and you move to that space. So, if you're playing the end of the game and you're in the Dragon Horde, and you're like, we got a couple more turns, we're going to kill, and it's like, oh, I'm now like...
Now the game's over.
The game, basically, you end it.
That should not be in the deck.
And it is a cool idea that this gate goes wild and you end up getting teleported somewhere. It's kind of a cool idea, and there's only one of them in the deck, but it basically ends the game at the wrong time.
And you have no control.
Or in the beginning of the game, which is when we got it, as I said, we got it, of course, in a number of our games, but, it wasn't as impactful, but I think we ended one game, I think, before we got it as well, but because that was an easier game. But, we got to the beginning of the game, and it took me to the monsters before I was really prepared, and I got, like, hit like a bunch, and our terror raised, and it was, like, really frustrating because, you move to, you have a plan, you're like, okay, I'm going to move over here, get ready to pick these up and do this, and then it's like, no, you're not, because you're gone from that space completely. Yeah. So that's a real big feel bad, I believe.
That card should not be in there. That could absolutely end your game right at the finale for no that you have no control over for no fault of your own.
Yeah.
Now, okay, before you start to wrap up final thoughts, I do want, I'm not a fan. I'm not a huge fan of the Horrified system. I did not like the original very much. I'm a bit conflicted here because on one hand, it feels like the mechanics might be the worst of all the Horrified from my standpoint. But on the other hand, I had the most fun of all the Horrifieds we've played with the mission we played. And I think it's worth thinking about why that is. And for me, first of all, we had a fun game where this dragon's roaming around downstairs. We're all hiding up here and arguing about who should leave and risk the dragon. And then the fight against the dragon feels much more dangerous and epic than I remember any of the other monsters. He is so dangerous, and you have to do this multi-step thing to fight him. And it was a finale fight and a feel-good ending that my most enjoyable Horrified game was playing this version of Horrified.
Recency, but I think that really do believe that. I'm not just saying that to get your,
I'm not saying you're saying it's recency, but I know that I didn't like the previous Horrifieds, and I did like this. All my comments about why might be true. I might be misremembering, but I know I enjoyed.
But I think that's something that isn't, and that's kind of the usefulness of that comment to you is that, like, I think that when you play this game, like, that's a strength of the Horrifieds, is that you can, that the monsters are different and unique, and that you're planning out your turns, like, and you're doing that teamwork of, like, moving around and trying to pick up and deliver things. I mean, because this is like a pandemic, pick up and deliver a pandemic, right? That's like the same, very, and I feel like rationing out those last few turns to make sure you can winning in the last couple turns is the most enjoyable part. Is like, how can we make this happen? So. Yeah, you want me to start with final thoughts? You want to go?
Yeah, I'd like to hear where you would rank this among the Horrified you've played.
Well, I'll do that when I go through my final thoughts.
Yeah, because I think that's
my okay. So that's my
final thoughts.
That's my lens. Is that I'm not just gonna rate this in a vacuum. This is an acceptable game to play. It's enjoyable. To me, it's like more of like, why would you buy this game over another Horrified game? Okay, so the amount of monsters and the variables there, not as good as any of the other games, because there's less monsters and you always have to play with a red dragon or basically steamroll the game. So I think that's the biggest thing, although I do like the monster assortment. The player characters are the worst I've ever played in any game of all time. Hard, full stop. That's a pretty big statement to make, but I don't like them it's hard. I don't think I'll ever play a game where I like the characters least. The map offers some interesting features and breaks your brain a little bit. So I do like it thematically, as well as the idea that you can move around differently. I think that's the most interesting thing that this game brings to the table that the other games don't. I think all in all, the theme not as strong as the others. I do like the fact that they went back to these kind of cards being less generic. Although a little bit fiddlier than American and Universal monsters, I think, than on the bottoms of the cards. Little more lucky, I guess. You're rolling that die 20 quite a bit, so it's definitely on the most random edge of the Horrifieds, which to me I prefer. I know you have to have some randomness, but I like to have a bit more control than this game. This game is, although I do think it is a fine game, I could play this. I could happily play it. But I don't see why I would play this over any other Horrified. Again,
bottom of the Horrified rankings.
Easily.
Interesting. Yeah. And what would you give it numeric score?
I guess I would probably put this maybe a 6.5.
Interesting.
Yeah, I just thought of that just now. I should have thought of it earlier.
So I'm not a fan of the Horrified series. I did enjoy. I like playing each of the monsters once. Then I never want to play it again. I do think some of the decisions here are inexplicable. I did really like that there was this big, scary monster. I don't remember what a monster, the other monsters being so formidable. And the other monsters in this particular game and all the other Horrifieds feel less formidable. Although, again, his main fight is like a 9 puzzle. It's this puzzle where you got to move things around. I hate that. I hated it. So I don't ever want to play this again.
Can I just mention this stuff, which is kind of cool? So the idea is that you got to move this orb through, but you have to move these pieces are all in the way, and so you have to kind of like slide them out of the way.
Spend actions to do these sliding
so you can move
things.
This through, and then get to the end. But what's kind of cool we didn't mention is that it gives you, this is showing you an example, but there's all these different layouts, and so you'll roll the die, and that's an 8.
It's just
So
the
you'll take
starting layout.
that's the starting layout,
but
which I think is kind of cool that they've thought of a bunch of different layouts for you to do. So that in and of itself is a little bit of variety.
The thing is, you're either going to tackle that and be like, let me pay for each move at a time, and then it's going to take you 5 times as long, or you could be like, all right, give me this card, let me work it out, and then we'll figure out the fastest way.
This is the same kind of puzzle you get. I mean, all of the monsters in Horrified, this is the basic puzzle you get. Is something like this that you're spending actions to move things around.
This one feels worse than the others, but I agree with you. I think maybe one of the other Horrifieds also has that.
They
I
all
just
have
think that's
something like
terrible.
that. I mean, that's the whole.
So I don't really care for Horrified. I don't remember what I rated the original, but I do think I want to make a special asterisk for this one.
Okay.
Which is, I think there might be some younger audience that much more resonates with this world, this Dungeons and Dragons world of fantasy, and likes and enjoys the dice rolling and being like, this is my power. I'm going to keep rolling this whenever, often. And so I think this would probably be the one I would recommend the most to a younger audience. So I think this is probably at the top of my Horrified, but not for me. Not for me. But for a younger group who gets excited about this. Like you could see the same reason we don't like these. I could see a younger audience loving these. Being like, oh yeah, let me roll this. Let me roll this. Because of the theme and the fun of seeing what happens when I roll. Like when you play D&D, you want to roll and get that, I got a natural 20, some great thing happened. Like,
but
I don't want that.
About the story, creating a story.
Well, sure. But we played this game, and there was a little story going on about who has to fight the dragon and who's going to run away.
The story was Jesse's like got his feet up, smoking a pipe, safe from the dragon, and I'm like, hey, come down here and help me. He's like, I'm not coming down there. The dragon's down there.
Who came and killed that dragon?
It took some coaxing to get you down here.
It was all strategic. I had to stay safe.
The strategy was
so
stay
that
alive.
I could put the knife in its belly.
Yeah. There have been times in this channel when I've been a guest on your channel that I've said something and some old footage will come up and be like, well, you thought that, and I feel like if I were in control of this, I could look at your thoughts and your discussions about the other Horrified games, and I bet you would be very surprised at what you said.
What did I say that you think I didn't say? I like.
I just mean in general. Yes, I think that I think if we were to mix these up, you would say like the other games are at the top of your list or whatever comparatively.
Interesting.
If we played them in a back-to-back.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to give this. I can't very well give it a higher rating than you. You're quite a fan of the Horrified series. I guess I'm gonna give it a dual rating, a 6 for people like me, but an anticipated 7.5 for a younger D&D friendly group.
That's so weird because we just recorded another review where I gave it kind of a dual rating with a game with legacy and non-legacy. Kind of like
that's right. Well, that's the new system on this channel. Everyone gets to give.
I think it's just called anything goes. You and I have become to a point where we're just like, who cares? Just do whatever we want.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, please do look at our other coverage of other Horrified games. We've got Universal Monsters, the best one. And we've got American Monsters on this channel. And then, of course, I have World of Monsters on my own channel. So you can see a lot of that coverage. And maybe we'll get to do the Greek monsters together. And if the ship stays rated long enough.
This is one of these games where I'd love to hear from others how they view the different Horrifieds, where they rank, is there something we got wrong?
It's the worst one.
All right. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
I just sneak that in there a little bit.